through those good stretches this afternoon. Welcome back, everybody, to our closing featured session of the day. We're very excited that you're here with us. We've had some great breakouts today. I've been in several that were just exceptional, and I know you have too. Starting this morning with our keynote featured speaker, all the way up till what I know is going to be an exciting afternoon, an exciting close to our day today. We have a special program in our closing. We're going to take a few minutes here at the beginning of our session to recognize some of our award winners. Typically, when we have an in-person meeting, we have a luncheon and we have an opportunity to recognize some exceptional teachers, some leaders in our schools, our administrators, community members, support personnel, and others who are doing exceptional work. And this is going to look a little bit different than what we normally have, but we're really excited that you're here, and we honor and recognize the award recipients this year. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ben Annis, who is the president of the School Administrators Association for our state agency children for SACSAA. And he is going to lead us through the next session, and then we'll come back together for our featured speaker this afternoon. Ben, the floor is yours.
Dr. Nolan, it does not look like you rubbed your head. Your hair looked great, so it doesn't look like you did that. Just saying. Hey guys, this is a lot different. It's an honor to still be serving as your president of SACSAA. Just want to get started and get us through this today. I've enjoyed the sessions. We at KAES believe it is our administrators, teachers, support staff, and the community members who truly make a difference in the students' lives. We know that. And kids in our programs have not been dealt an easy hand in life. And often, by the time that they enter our lives, many people have given up on them. So, but through our hard work and our care and our dedication to providing them with exceptional learning opportunities, we're trying to build impactful relationships that are creating a better future for our students, just like our lead speaker spoke about this morning. We're trying to make that connection. Our 2020 SACSAA Award winners truly embody the characteristics of exemplary educators and advocates for students, and we are honored to recognize their efforts and achievements today. Each year in our interagency advisory group, members vote on the nominees, and we receive for these awards, and each year we are thrilled to see the breadth of talent that we have in all of our programs across our great Commonwealth. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to present the 2020 annual SACSAA Awards to some of the finest educators and providers in Kentucky. The first award is the Russell Buchanan Outstanding KEXAC Administrator of the Year winner, characterized as providing outstanding leadership and developing innovative educational programming for our state agency children. This year's award recipient is Lori Nodler, who serves as an associate principal and school administrator of Western Day and St. Joseph Children's Home in Jefferson County School District. Ms. Nodler has been leading these two diverse programs for 4 years now, and prior to that, she was the head teacher at Western Day. Her leadership at Western Day has directly improved systems, supported staff to improve instruction, increase collaboration, with their treatment partner, and fostered success for all students. This in turn contributed to the program being honored as an alternative program of distinction for 5 years in a row now. She is described as inclusive and professional who excludes compassion and love for her students daily. She is continually implementing innovative strategies to support her staff and their development, as well as her students' educational and treatment goals. In short, her commitment and hard work are more than deserving of recognition. Congratulations on your accomplishments, Ms. Nodler. I don't guess we all hear the round of applause. The Outstanding Support Staff of the Year category honors exemplary state agency program staff members whether they are assistants or treatment staff who are working to make a difference in the lives of state agency children. This year's award recipient goes to Siobhan Johnson, who is an exceptional child educational instructional assistant at Western Day in Jefferson County School District. Ms. Johnson has worked at the program for 2 years, was previously a special needs bus monitor for JCPS. She is praised as being exceptionally kind, patient, and empathetic when dealing with students in crisis, and consistently increasing her knowledge about trauma-informed care and crisis de-escalation. Her skills at providing support to students and teachers are exemplary, and you can always find her either engaged with students, leading small group instruction, assisting with classroom projects and social emotional lessons, or even engaged in crisis de-escalation. Described as being compassionate, dedicated child advocate who creates a safe haven for students, it is obvious to see why Ms. Johnson's impact on the program is so impressive. Congratulations on your award. The last award is the Roy L. Chapman Outstanding Teacher of State Agency Children Award. Recipients demonstrate an exceptional performance over a period of time as the teacher displays such qualities as innovation, imagination, creativity, and the ability to inspire. This year's award recipient is Brian Durham, who is a special education teacher at Peace Academy in Jefferson County School District. He has been at the program for 2 years and has been a special education teacher at other KAES programs in Jefferson County since 2013. Taught at regular JCPS middle school since 2006. Mr. Durham's colleagues praise his commitment to students, his contribution to team efforts, and his innovative and engaging lessons that classroom strategies, that facilitate individualized learning. Some of Mr. Durham's notable and effective classroom strategies include his calming one-on-one interactions with all his students, his ability to incorporate engaging movements, structures, and routines into his daily instruction, and his exemplary efforts at differentiation. He has also been instrumental in implementing a school-wide PBIS plan and in successful collaboration with their treatment partner to support the emotional, behavior, and academic needs of each student participating during NTI days this spring. Based on Mr. Durham's positive contributions, student outcomes, his dedication to the program as a whole is very commendable. Congratulations on your achievements. The last one is the Outstanding Community Member of the Year Award, and it is intended to honor an outstanding person, partner, and organization in which has shown exceptional support for state agency children in Kentucky. This year's award recipient is Susan Keel. For her services to Western Day in Jefferson County School District, Ms. Keel works for 7 counties services and has been a clinical supervisor and principal therapist at Western Day since 2012. She has also been a therapist in other capacities since 2007. Ms. Keel's character is described by colleagues as one who is always approachable, engaged, and eager to help the students in need at any time at the program. She is often the first connection that families make at Western Day, committing herself to meeting the best interests of the child and family with empathy and warmth and often traumatizing situations. She's always advises pathways to support whether a student is accepted into the program or not. Her dedication and engagement to students also carries through their entire enrollment, whether it's through transition care, family support, or educational or therapeutic intervention. Ms. Keel's caring demeanor and positive attitude lends a remarkable collaboration component to the program. Her contributions, hard work, are much deserving of this recognition also. And I'd like to, at this time, I know that any of the recipients can speak, and I know that we have one that wanted to, for sure, and if anybody else would like to ring in, I would just like to, on behalf of SACSAA and interagency Advisory Committee, just like to thank you for all your hard work. And to everyone out there, we are in trying times and we're doing the best that we can do. And I know it goes for all of us. Keep striving to make the students the most important part of it. Ms. Johnson, would you like to talk? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Ronnie, can you see if, can you hear?
I think we have a bad connection there from you, Ms. Johnson.
I don't know how to fix it.
I'll advise folks, if you could, to turn off your camera, your video, if you'd like to, so we can save some bandwidth on here, and maybe we'll be able to get a good connection from Ms. Johnson so we can hear from her this afternoon. We'll try that and see if that works. We appreciate you being here. Let's just try this one more time.
Okay. I don't know if anybody can hear me. Okay. Well, I would just like to say that I'd like to thank everyone that nominated me for this award. I'm very honored to accept it. I don't do my job to be recognized, but I tell you, it feels really good to be seen. I believe in our children and even the ones that struggle. So I will continue to reach out and do what I can to help them reach their full potential. Again, I say thank you to everyone that nominated me.
Thank you so much. That came through. I got that. We appreciate your service and all of the award recipients this afternoon. Thank you all so much for your work, your dedication to state agency children, to students who are oftentimes not just neglected and abused, but oftentimes discarded and not treated with the respect and with the kind of love that they deserve. And I'm glad and just so proud of all of you for the work that you do for our students and for doing what you do. So thank you to everybody there. We're very excited for you and appreciate your service. As you probably noticed throughout this, also Ben Annis, thank you, our SACSAA president. We'll make sure I thank Ben as well. He's been a wonderful president and a leader for our students, our advisory group, and with our SACSAA group throughout the last 2 years as president, I think, and then before that as our president-elect for a short period before transitioning into that. We appreciate your service as well and look forward to continued service into the fall. But you've been a great asset as well. So thank you everybody for joining us. As you noticed as we were going through this awards ceremony, you maybe saw a trend in there. All of our award recipients this year are Jefferson County Public School employees, and we are very excited about that. What a testament to the great work taking place in JCPS. I'm telling you, when we talk about a turnaround story in education, this is it. And these folks are leading the way. I'm just so proud of everything you all are doing there. And I think you'll hear exactly why those things are happening in just a few minutes when we have Dr. Marty Pollio, who will be joining us to talk with us about what they're doing. But before we get to that, I am so excited again to have such a just an amazing mentor and leader who's here with us today. Dr. Lou Young, who is the chairperson of the Kentucky Board of Education, is joining us. I told you guys that this morning, that she would be here, and we're so glad she's joining us. I said before, and I'll say again and continue to say, that she is the chairperson of what I think is the most qualified state board of education anywhere in the country. When we look at the depth of knowledge of this group, I'm telling you, it pales in comparison to no one. They are an exceptional group, and they could not have selected a better person to lead this group than Dr. Lou Young, who has been a tireless advocate for educators and students across the Commonwealth for years. Not too many years though, right? Lou has been a teacher, she's been a principal, she's been a superintendent, she's been assistant superintendent, she's been a faculty member at the university level, leading research and doing everything else. But I think for us, her number one accomplishment, her biggest contribution has been that she served on our board of directors for several years as she was the superintendent of Jefferson County Public Schools. and led the Providence School, which is one of our programs in Jessamine County and an exceptional program in the state for alternative education. She really not only talked the talk, but she walked the walk with that program and committing herself to investing in the lives of students who a lot of other people didn't. I just couldn't be prouder to welcome you guys here today and to share with you the exceptional leader that I know and that I love. It's Dr. Lou Young. Thank you for being here.
Ronnie, thank you so much. That may be my favorite introduction ever. So you hit all of my favorite notes. Thank you. And everyone, I'm so happy to see you, and I wish I could be here for the entire KEXAC conference. It was always one of my favorite events of the year, and I'm just really happy to join you this afternoon and bring you greetings on behalf of the Kentucky Board of Education, Interim Commissioner Kevin Brown, and our new Kentucky Commissioner of Education, Dr. Jason Glass. It really is an honor to work with this board team. Like Ronnie said, it is a fine group of individuals, and I appreciate them and their talent so much. And our goal is to advance a high quality public school experience for every Kentucky child and youth. As Ronnie mentioned, during my time as superintendent of Jessamine County Schools, some of my very favorite days were spent at the Providence School. And I don't think I'm bragging when I tell you it was and is one of the very best alternative schools in the nation, and has been consistently recognized as a Kentucky Alternative School of Distinction. It is the legacy work, some of the work I am most proud of from my time in Jessamine County. I know some of my Providence peeps are joining in this conference today, so here's a shout out to those educators who, like most of you involved with KEXAC programs, are real heroes, just like Lori and Siobhan and Brian and Susanna, changing the lives and futures of Kentucky's marginalized kiddos one youth at a time. So I want to take a moment to encourage you to continue to invest yourselves in the lives of your students. Frankly, they need you now more than ever before. And lastly, I'd like to read you the final Be It Resolved statement in a resolution passed by our state board on July 10th in support of educational equity for all Kentucky children and youth. Be it resolved that we must no longer be silent about educational inequity and racial injustice. We call on education leaders across the Commonwealth to examine policies, procedures, and funding decisions through the lens of racial equity to ensure children of every race have equal access to educational opportunity. District leaders, during this time when the future of education is in flux, we urge you to think unconventionally and innovatively as you prepare to serve all students, because conventional methods clearly have not yielded the results we need. We call on the Department of Education to recommit to genuine partnership with districts as together we dismantle racism in our schools and ensure that educational equity and racial justice become reality for every Kentucky learner in every Kentucky classroom. So when I think about that kind of educational innovation, I think about KEXAC programs, I think about A5 and A6 schools and all of the work that you guys do to ensure that every child is engaged and that every child has access to high quality learning. And I think, like Ronnie said, it is not a coincidence that all four of the SACSAA award winners today came from Jefferson County schools. So it's my pleasure this afternoon to welcome the real talent on the agenda for today and to introduce Dr. Marty Pollio, Superintendent of Jefferson County Public Schools. So you're getting some love and some attention there, some applause, silent applause, Marty. Dr. Marty Pollio, or Marty as we call him, assumed the role of acting superintendent in Jefferson County in July of 17 and became the permanent superintendent of Jefferson County Schools in February of 18. What's so special about Dr. Pollio's dedication to Jefferson County is that he spent 20 years of his career serving the students of JCPS as a longtime administrator and educator whose focus is improving culture and climate across the district, increasing student achievement, and implementing deeper learning strategies to make lessons come alive for students and teachers. And I know that means all students and all teachers. Marty began his career with JCPS in '97 as a social studies teacher at Shawnee, went on to become a teacher and assistant principal at Wagner, and then head principal at Jeffersontown High School from '07 to 2015. Dr. Pollio was the principal of Doss High School when he was selected as the acting superintendent. So straight out of the high school leadership into the leadership of one of the maybe 29th largest districts in the country. Dr. Pollio received his undergrad degree from Indiana University and his master's degree from Eastern Kentucky University and his doctorate from the University of Louisville in 2012. Marty and his wife, Jessica, are the parents of one daughter who is a proud student of Jefferson County Public Schools. So please join me in a silent welcome this afternoon to Superintendent Dr. Marty Pollio.
Thank you, Lou. Appreciate it. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. I'm good. Okay. Usually, if it's my team and all the cameras are off, I give them grief and say, turn your cameras on so I know you're paying attention. But Ronnie made it clear that he didn't want to have a problem with bandwidth. So we'll allow you to keep them off today as long as everyone promises they're going to lock in and pay attention. But I appreciate being here. Lou, thank you so much for that introduction. I just want to say how nice it is and I present to the Kentucky board every other month at their meeting. And there is not much a better feeling now when you sit across the table from somebody, the chair who you know has a deep understanding of education, has a lifelong educator herself. And it's just very meaningful to have someone who has shared in the struggles and battles of being a superintendent and working in an urban school district and all of the challenges that come with that. So thank you very much, Lou. I appreciate it. I wish they had given you the short version of my introduction. I can't stand when people have to do the long version of that. But also, congratulations to our winners of the awards. I'm really excited to see JCPS educators sweep the awards. I know there's probably so many on this call out of the 250 or so educators on this call who are probably worthy of these awards. And I know anytime awards are given out, it's nearly impossible to narrow them down. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are very worthy of these awards. And so,
what do you mean Tracy screwed him over? What happened?
I want to go on. There you go. And so I know you're all worthy of the award. So, but congratulations to those winners. It'll be something that you never forget. To be recognized by your colleagues as being that special educator means a lot. I'm excited to be here mostly because of I know the type of educators that you are and the type of children that you serve and work with. And I want to highlight a little bit of that and my passion for the children that we are talking about. And although I have never worked in a state agency school, I know I have worked with many students over the course of my career who have spent time at state agency schools, and I know how impactful that is. And now being the superintendent of a district that has such a robust group of state agency schools and great leadership at our state agency schools. I think I saw Heather Moss on here, so she provides that leadership. So it's really impactful. But as Lou said, you know, every stop during my career has been at a school with high need students, high trauma, high free and reduced student population. The first day I remember walking into Shawnee High School, as it was called then, in 1997. I was a brand new teacher and walked in the door, and hopefully you haven't heard me tell this story, but I had just left Eastern Kentucky University where I was assistant basketball coach and got my master's degree and taught a couple of years at EKU. And as it will happen in college basketball sometimes, the head coach got fired and ended up, so did I. And so probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was looking for other college coaching jobs, and I decided, you know what, I wanted to have my own team. And so my family was from Louisville, even though I didn't grow up here. So I said, well, I'll see what jobs are open in Louisville, Kentucky. I had my teaching certification. And the only job that was open was Shawnee High School. They had 9 kids on the team that were coming back. And I became a social studies and health teacher, strange combination, and then took the job at Shawnee High School. And that's how I got into JCPS. And I still remember having no idea what I was doing. And every stop along the way, I think any job I've taken, I've had no idea what I was doing and learning as building it as you fly the plane. But I'll never forget walking in to Shawnee High School on the first day of school with high poverty. Short story about that. you know, I was a excited gung-ho teacher. And I remember it was a little later than this. It was about the 1st of August, but it was pretty close to this time of year. And at Shawnee, we had a retreat. And this was 1997 in the midst of school uniforms. If everybody remembers, school uniforms were the big thing. We were really going to school uniforms. And we drove down to Barren River Lake for our for our school retreat. The entire faculty was there. I went down there by myself, had no idea what I was getting myself into. And so we get in there, and the entire first morning, and this shows you how much education has changed. We didn't talk about instruction at all. We talked about the uniforms. And so I was a gung-ho teacher, and so we spent the entire morning breaking into groups, talking about how we were going to all enforce the uniforms the entire school year, every single day. We're all on the same page. I left there and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. You got me. Went back home, got prepared, thought about it for a couple of weeks. First day of school comes. I'm 7 o'clock standing outside my classroom, and I'm waiting. I'm prepared. I'm in my tie, and the bell rings for the kids to leave the cafeteria. And I was like, all right, school uniforms. They got to have that shirt tucked in. They got to have that belt on. Let's get ready to go. First kid walks by me, and I said, excuse me, sir, could you tuck in your shirt? This was 1997, and he looked over at me, and I won't use the language, but he said, F you. And I turned around and walked back in my classroom, and I said, okay, I guess that's it for the school uniforms, and focused on teaching from that. So nothing against school uniforms. I just know how much instruction has changed, and how much things have changed since that time. And now hopefully we focus on the instructional part of it, the caring part of it, the relationship part of it. And so a lot has changed in education since '97. I went to Wagner High School, where I was a basketball coach and a teacher, and then became athletic director, and then became assistant principal. And in all honesty, I thought I was going to do that for the rest of my, for 10, 12 years as an assistant principal. And maybe the last 4 or 5 years, I'd try to be a principal. And then life has a funny way of tapping you on the shoulder. And 3 years later, became a principal at J-Town High School, where I learned a lot about my belief about culture. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that as we move forward. Stayed there for 8 years. Not sure what I wanted to do, if I was going to finish out my career there, but then I got tapped on the shoulder again. And it was to go to the second lowest performing high school in the state, Doss High School. And Superintendent Hargens asked me to take over at Doss, and I was ready for a new challenge. I wanted to see if I could bring culture to a school that was really struggling at the time, make wall-to-wall career academies with a focus on student engagement. And that's where I got a real passion for student engagement. I've spent my entire career looking at high school kids who were checked out or compliantly engaged, maybe going through the motions. And I just thought, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Kids should be engaged and passionate about school. And I did that work for 2 years, probably the 2 best years of my career, and would still be there today and be very proud of that. But I'll never forget, one day in May, 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, got a call, and it was the board general counsel. And as Lou knows, when a general counsel calls you as a principal, usually it's not good news. So it's usually you're having some kind of lawsuit against you. But at that time, the general counsel, Frank Mellon, asked me that the board wanted me to apply for the interim or the acting superintendent job. And so I thought, well, they're probably just asking a principal and inside just to do an interview. And so I just went to that interview, and I just said exactly what I thought about things that I'll talk about today, culture and student engagement. And the board loved it. And the next day I got the call asking me to be the acting superintendent, which I agreed to do. But then, I had that, oh, you know what moment that next night laying in bed that we all have at some point in our lifetime about what have I gotten myself into. Little did I know what I had gotten myself into. And just a brief story, about 6 weeks into the acting superintendent role here in JCPS, we had this thing called the solar eclipse. Does everybody remember the eclipse that occurred in August of 2017? Well, here in Louisville, it came at 2:25. And so what worse time could it possibly be for a solar eclipse to come through once every generation than 2:25 p.m. and our middle and high schools release at 2:20. And so a lot of people just said, well, just tell the kids not to look up in the sky. And so for all of you that work with kids, which are most of you here, know that telling a middle or high school student not to look up into the sky is going to ensure that they look up into the sky. And I remember getting with our just newly named acting chief academic officer, Carmen Coleman at the time. And we thought, what should we do? Should we cancel school? Should we do this? This is a learning experience. But I'll never forget us saying that, you know, this is too good to pass up. Let's have our kids in school. Let's make it an engaging learning experience. But for about 4 nights in a row, I had this thought in my head that it was going to be like Indiana Jones movie, you know, when they pull out the ark at the end and everyone's face melts off. I mean, that's what I thought was going to happen in my first 6 weeks as superintendent, that all of these kids, that the injuries and lawsuits were going to be coming in and my career would be over after 6 weeks. Fortunately, it was not, and it was a great experience. But I thought at that time, boy, this is the toughest thing that Dr. Coleman and I are going to have to go through in our entire time together in this district. Little did we know the things that were coming and continue to come to us on a regular basis. From things like state takeover. When we had state takeover, and then the audit that we received back, the corrective action plan that we've had to correct 276 items, and so many of you from JCPS have been a part of that. 276 items across 155 schools. You know, we had the teacher sick out, and we know, you know, all of those things that occurred around that and making tough decisions about whether to go to school and what was safe or not for kids. The major changes we're trying to make to JCPS. And then I finally gave my State of the District address in February and really thought we were poised to make major change. And then 2 weeks later, we get hit with this COVID-19 crisis, which continues on in our nation and world right now. And it is having a huge impact on education, as we know, and it is what we deal with all the time. So that gives you a little bit, I know many of you know that, but where I've been. But I want to go back to August of 2017, a few weeks before that solar eclipse. I gave my first administrative kickoff speech to all the administrators in JCPS. I gave them to them in the auditorium over at Mayo High School. So we had about 500 or 600 administrators, maybe 800 administrators in that auditorium at Gaines. And earlier, about 4 weeks before that, I had seen a story one Saturday morning on ESPN. They have those Sports Center specials. And I told the story. I showed the clip, actually, and I won't show you the clip. But if you get the opportunity, I would really encourage you. You probably heard me use the slogan before when I say I love my job and I'm really, really good at it. And I'm going to save your child. But that comes from this Sports Center clip of a doctor named Zane Kalpey, K-A-L-P-E-Y. And you can find that on YouTube, I'm sure. But essentially, the brief story is it was a minor league hockey game out in Arizona, a professional hockey game. And the teams were in warm-ups before the game, and one of the young men had a heart attack on the ice. A young man in his late 20s, a promising hockey player, had a heart attack right there on the ice in warm-ups. The EMS came out on the ice and were actually giving him CPR on the ice in front of his mother and family who were watching the entire time. So you can imagine how distraught and what a scene that must be for a family to watch their child be given CPR on the ice. Eventually, they got him loaded up into the ambulance and took him off to the hospital while continuing to give him CPR. He did not have a pulse for the better part of 50 minutes, but they continued to give him CPR. At that hospital was a doctor who was at home at the time named Zane Kalpey, who was one of the foremost experts, heart doctors in the nation. And he lived about 20 minutes away from the hospital, and they called him. And they said in this that about 99.9% of the doctors would have just said on the phone at that time of the night, 8:30 or 9 o'clock, How long has he been given CPR? 20 or 30 minutes? Go ahead and call it. It's done and would not have gone to the hospital. Instead, Zane Calpe got in his car and said, I'll meet you at the hospital. By the time he had gotten there, it had been about 50 minutes of CPR, unheard of in resuscitation. And so Dr. Calpe walked into the waiting room, into the lobby of the hospital, and looked over and saw the family sitting there. And I'll never forget hearing this the first time that he said this. But he walked in, and most doctors, I think, would have just walked right by the parents and gone to work and not said anything, or said something very clinical to the family about doing their best. But instead, Dr. Calpe said to the family, I love my job. I'm really, really good at it, and I'm going to save your son. And so, you know, I was moved by that moment. I was moved by what he said. He ended up going in and saving his son, saving her son. The young man did lose his legs as a result of the heart condition, but is now alive. And so I think more of the power of that is, did Dr. Calpe have to say, I love my job? Did he have to go in and say that? Or did he have to say, I'm really, really good at it? And so the mom in the show talks about how much that meant, that this man came in and was not going through the motions, but instead talked about how much he loved his job. And so in our profession right now, it's very difficult at times to love our job, you know, with what we have to see every day. And I know that you all see some of the most challenging, heartbreaking situations in the world. And right now, public education, I will not hide behind this, is under political attack every single step that we go. And there is a political agenda often against public education, and we cannot hide behind that. But after telling that story, I'd tell that because I went out to Maryhurst later that year, one of the state agency schools. And so I had a young lady, and I show this right here, named Shelby. So hopefully you can see this picture right here. And this was an art project that was done at Maryhurst back, I guess this was 2017. And if you see at the top, their challenge was to paint a picture of a leader, a local leader in the community. They invited several people. And she put the quote up here, I love my job, I'm really, really good at it, and I'm going to save your child. And so this is hanging up in my office. And so people come in my office and they often wonder why I have a painting of myself hanging up in my office. So if you're ever here, that was because of my great visit to that school and to Shelby. I often wonder what happened to Shelby. I know at that time she was a senior from a small county in rural Kentucky. I believe she had been facing abuse from her biological parents who were, I believe, had some drug problems. I didn't dig too much into it. I wanted her to share what she felt comfortable sharing. I encouraged her to continue on with her education. She said all she wanted to do was to go home and marry her boyfriend. I really encouraged her to consider thinking about post-secondary. I hope she did. I don't know if that happened or not, but I really hope she did. And then a second visit I like to highlight, I've been to all of the JCPS state agency schools. First day of school last year, I went to Peace Academy, maybe the first week of school. And, you know, some of the stories, for those of you that are at Peace Academy, we know are just absolutely heartbreaking. And I got to take a tour, and nothing is better to me than when I see the impact of our district initiatives happening in a state agency school. And so you may have heard, we do the Backpack of Success Skills in JCPS, where we are really working to make lessons alive, where we want kids engaged, student engagement, not going through the motions of a curriculum that doesn't matter. And we really work on our student success skills and have them collect artifacts in their digital backpack and do a defense of their digital backpack. And so I was taking a tour of Peace Academy, and I really was not expecting to hear the backpack when we go into classrooms. And I went into one classroom, I don't remember this young lady's name, but she was in the corner, and you could tell that there had been a lot of abuse in her lifetime because she did not smile at all. She kept her head down, did not say a word, and you could just see the pain on her face. And I was getting a tour from one of the employees at Peace Academy, and the employee told me, I can't remember her name, but said she just defended her backpack. And I said, who defended their backpack? And so told her the name, and I looked over, and just for a second, just for enough of a second, and when I said, that is awesome, I'm so proud of you, you could see the slightest smile on her face as she turned around, looked at me, and I don't think she knew who I was and didn't really matter. But you could tell, I guess, because of probably the outfit I was wearing, a suit and tie, that maybe she thought I was somewhat important. And she got a little smile on her face, quickly returned to the frown, but for just a moment had a smile on her face. And those are the moments that I think are so important, that as you begin to work this year with your children in whatever capacity that is, I know this is going to be a very challenging year for everyone in education for many reasons. But I just want to say that those moments are so important for you to make sure that you know every single moment is an opportunity for you to change the life of a child. And I'll tell you an experience that's happened to me since I've become superintendent. You know, I never really expected to be superintendent. I expected to be a principal. Like I said, that was my passion for what to do. In all honesty, I would probably still prefer to be doing that because how difficult this job is. And I would tell you this, if it wasn't for my deep care for Jefferson County Public Schools, you know, it would be very difficult for me to do a job like this. I don't understand how in a large district, someone can come from outside and be a superintendent from the outside if they don't have the care for the faculty and staff and students of the district. Because as I said, I'm going on my 24th year in this district now. So for those of you who spend many years in a district, you know the stories of the people who have worked in this district, who have retired in this district, who still work. You swap stories about the old times and growing up in the district and the lessons you learned and being at a retreat at Shawnee High School in 1997. And there are thousands of teachers and employees that I could walk into any school almost, and I know somebody in that school. So I often wonder how people could possibly do this position outside of coming from the outside. The other benefit that I want to talk about is my newfound, I don't want to say fame because I don't think that's what it is, but ability for people to recognize me, I guess has its benefits at a few times, but a lot of detractions as well. Because it's very difficult for me now to go anywhere without someone talking to me. And when we're in a difficult time where we have to make a tough situation, you can imagine everywhere I go, I get feedback on what we should do. And so you can imagine what that feedback on how to do my job must be like. And so I saw someone put popularity. Popularity can be both negative and positive. But one of the positives of being recognizable out in the community is I have more now former students and former parents that come to me and will walk up to me and talk to me about an experience that I had with them in one of my 24 years in JCPS. Most of them were when I was a principal, the 10 years as I was a principal, but I still get some when I was 3 years as assistant principal and even as a teacher. And this is usually what happens when someone comes up to me. You know, they might come up to me and make a joke about how I was assistant principal. They thought I had eyes in the back of my head. I remember those were the simple days where I just worry about catching kids smoking, you know, or something like that. But, or a few times I've gotten this, and this is the point of my story. I have a student who comes up to me and says, do you remember the time you did this or said this to me or did this for me? Or I've had a parent who has come up to me recently and said, do you remember the time my child was really struggling at J-Town High School? And I called and asked, and you said to come in my to come on into the office and let's sit down with your child and talk about that. And so she said, you talked to us for about 30 minutes about being successful and the things you needed to do. And it made such a difference in my child's life. I can't describe to you the difference that that made. And now my child is in college or graduated from college. And it always makes me so, it's that feeling. So for those of you that have been around for a long time, you know that feeling when you feel like you've made a difference. And I have to tell young teachers, you might not get that, although Hollywood often describes this teaching experience as getting that right away. You may not get that until years go by. But there is nothing better than when a student or a parent tells you that, and you realize I made a difference in a child's life. And here's what I realized from that story. A couple of things. First of all, every interaction we have with a child in a school is an opportunity to change their life. Every single interaction. Because when that parent told me that story, and usually when those kids tell me about a time I did something, I have no recollection of it whatsoever. And I'm sure many of you that have done this for years have the same thing. Something that was said or done is very meaningful to a child and to their parent, but we don't even know it's meaningful at that time. But that just goes to show you how every interaction within a school is an opportunity to make a difference in a child's life. And what power that is, right? I mean, how many interactions do you have with kids every single day? On the other hand, I also have to stop and think in the middle of the night when I'm laying there in reflection thinking, how many times in a 24-year career have I had the opportunity to take advantage of that, to make a difference in a child's life, and I let it pass me by? Maybe I was grumpy and another child had done something that made me walk down the hallway and pass a child without saying an encouraging word. Maybe I was tired. I didn't sleep well the night before. It was a Friday or it was a Monday, and we all come in and say it's Monday, and we don't have that enthusiasm that we need to have to change a child's life. Maybe it was because of something wasn't going well at home or I wasn't feeling well. But every single time I passed a child and I did not take the opportunity, it was an opportunity missed to make a difference in a child's life. And here is what I want to say to you all. You all have in your hands the children who need you the most. They need people who care the most. They need educators who are willing to come every single day and understand that you are the one person in their life that maybe cares for them. We all know they've been all given, for the most part, a raw deal, a bad hand in life. And they get to interact with you every day. And you are the person that can possibly change their life. And every interaction is that opportunity to do that. And so I would encourage you this year, no matter what opportunity that is, I don't care if it's in person, if it's virtually, if it's on the phone, whatever you think, every time you interact with a child is an opportunity to change the trajectory of that child's life. It's an opportunity for them to look back to you 10, 15, 20 years from now and say, I was at the lowest point of my life, and you stepped up and said this, and it made all the difference in the world, and now I'm successful. And here's the power of education, folks. This is a major area that we have to focus on. It's not about that one person. We all know that education is generational. When you make a difference in a child's life, you are making a difference in that child's children's life and their children's life. We cannot say that enough. And I'm going to tell you, in the course of my 24-year career, I have seen way too many of the students that I had in my school murdered or go to jail because of that. And every time that happens, and I watch the news, which I don't watch as much anymore, but when I do and I see a student's name and it seems recognizable, and I go to Infinite Campus and I go back and search, and sure enough, it was a student that I had. I have to reflect and think, did I do everything that I possibly could to help that child to change their life? And so if I'd say anything to you as you go into this year, just remember, every time you go to work and you put your car in park, if it's in person, or if it's virtually and you turn on the computer to talk to a child, or you dial a phone number to talk to a child, every time, and I encourage people, when you're driving to work, be as grumpy as you want to be, complain as much as you want to complain. But when you put your car in park, that is the time that the kids you are about to interact with need you the most. And so if that takes 30 seconds of, okay, the complaining's out of the way, the children I'm about to interact with need me and deserve me to be at my best, and I'm going to do everything possible to change the trajectory of this child's life today with every interaction that I have with them. Now imagine that. We have 17,000 educators in JCPS, thousands and thousands of more educators across this state. If everyone came to work every day with that type of attitude, and no matter what happened to them the day before, I don't care what a kid said or did to them, no matter what, if every day they walked in the front door and said, for the next 7 hours, I'm going to give everything I can to change the life, and I'm going to have enthusiasm and passion for my job. I'm going to love my job. I'm going to be really, really good at it, and I'm going to save a child today. If everyone came with that attitude, there would be magic across this state and across this nation. And I believe that's all it takes. We can argue and debate instructional strategies and initiatives and all testing. But if everyone came with that attitude every single day, we would have a difference maker across this nation. So that's what I'd encourage you to do, to think about that. It's easy in August, folks. It's easy in August. It's a little bit harder in September. In October, we all start to fade a little bit. Usually by November, most people are into their regular rut, taking days off, dragging into work. It takes great educators when they put their car in park in the middle of February to walk into that work facility and say the same thing every day and come with that passion and energy. The last thing I'll say about it is this, because we all know, kids know, all right, kids see through us. When as a principal, and a kid would come to me and would say, that teacher doesn't care. And I would debate them on it, but deep down inside, I'd have to say, you might be right about that. Kids know when a teacher has passion and energy and when they care, and those that truly don't and are going through the motions. So do not be that teacher that goes through the motions. Be like Zane Calpe, who walked into the emergency room and said, I love my job. I'm really, really good at it, and I'm going to save your child. So that would be my, what I would say, that if you do that, you will be great. A couple of other things I want to share with you as I finish up here over the last 10 or 15 minutes. First of all, the importance of your work. Over the time of my career, I have never seen such a dramatic increase in the amount of students that are in need across our state, across our community, and most likely across our nation. We have a crisis on our hands with childhood poverty, with childhood trauma, with opioids and addiction that I know many of you have to see the outcomes because of that. And it seems to increase dramatically every year. And essentially what we all are trying to do in our society is put a Band-Aid on it. And so, when I bring out the numbers just in Jefferson County, for years, I think in JCPS, we have decided a communication strategy is to minimize the need of students. And so a couple of years ago, really about a year ago, I decided our job here was to shine a light on the need of students. And if people did not choose to come to a public school because of that light, I'm willing to accept that sacrifice, because everyone needs to know the kids in need in our community and across this state. And so we have over 6,000 homeless students in Jefferson County. And I just want to repeat that because I'm not sure people quite understand. 6,000 of our students, over 6% of our students go home every single night from school when we're going home from school and are not sure where they're going to sleep that night. There is housing insecurity. And what impact does that have on the life of a child and their education? We have 67,000 kids in this community who qualify for free and reduced lunch. We have 11,000 English language learners who have come to our country from many different backgrounds and struggles. If any of you have read American Dirt, which I read recently over the summer, it really shines a light on the struggles that our children come to this country, our immigrant students come to this country from, the incredible wherewithal that they come from, and then possibly what they have to face when they get here. I'd encourage you to read that if you have the opportunity. 13,000 special education students in such a variety of need. And so I think it's important that we highlight this need, that we all know that all of these children have special needs that are so important to us. And I know that you all know, as enrollment in state agency schools has increased and the need to continue to enroll more students and the need to be in our state agency schools continues. Those asking, the name of the book is American Dirt. Sorry, I wasn't clarified on that. You know, the amount of need that is going into our schools is just second to none. And I want to say that we have to recognize that, number one. And secondly, we have to be willing to fund our schools, our state funding, provide our state the necessary funding, and provide our districts the funding that it deserves in order to meet the needs of our students. And there is one thing that is very clear. Research is very clear. Money matters in student outcomes. I can't say that enough. Money matters, funding matters in student outcomes. If we line up the states that have the best outcomes for students down to the worst outcomes for students, you will see a correlation, a strong correlation with how they fund their schools. And unfortunately, across the board, over the past decade, we have seen a decline in funding, especially when you note for inflation. We have seen a decline in funding in many ways. We've seen cuts to textbooks, professional development, extended school. Across the board, we see that. And we're wanting schools to serve kids in a better way, provide better services, more wraparound services for our children, for kids who have much more extreme need, who come from trauma every single day. And if we are going to meet the needs of our children across this nation, I am convinced that what we have to do is start funding our schools and our school districts in the right way, and as communities, be willing to step up and say that we're willing to do that. And I'll tell you this, in JCPS, I know that I've been making the case for the better part of a year about the need for increased funding for our students. We added mental health professionals to all schools last year. It's just scratching the surface of the needs of our kids. We know this, that in the past 10 years, suicide amongst 10 to 24-year-olds has gone up something like 125%. I don't know that. I'm sure someone on here has that exact number. But, I mean, we have to ask, why is that occurring? And are we going to hope our way out of this? Are we going to provide the services that kids need and the supports that kids need? And we could sure do a whole conference on everything that we need to do to reduce anxiety and depression and suicide, amongst many other things in kids. But I've been making that case about how we needed to have additional funding. And I've obviously talked a lot about our facilities. And for you in Jefferson County that live in Jefferson County, you all know and are very clear about the absolutely devastating need of facilities in JCPS. Our last high school was built in 1968. From 1955 to 1975, this district built 48 schools. In the same 20-year period, 2000 to 2020, we have built a total of 4 schools. It is an unsustainable model. We have 32 schools that are end of life. And I believe that in the next decade, if this community is not willing to take action, we will be shutting down and condemning schools in the middle of the year and forcing kids to go to other schools as a result. That's where we are with our facilities. And all I'll say is if you drive around the schools in Lexington or drive around the schools in Oldham County and then drive around the schools in Jefferson County, you will see what I believe to be how much our community cares about the children. I believe it's symbolic. In this district in West Louisville, we've not built a middle school or a high school since 1952. The brand new Central High School, which is now on the condemned list. We've had a 3rd floor at the Academy at Shawnee that has been condemned since 1981. I taught at that school. And when I taught there, I said, what's upstairs? Nothing, it's been condemned. And the district would say, well, we don't have enough kids there, so we'll condemn it. And I said, what does that say to the kids of that school that, of course, kids aren't going to choose to go to that school? There is a condemned floor where kids would sneak up and do things they shouldn't do because there is a condemned floor in the school. And what is that saying to our students? Fortunately, we are fixing that problem. But I believe that school buildings, just like school services, just like teacher salaries and employee salaries, are symbolic of how much we care for our kids. And so I decided that now is the time to do this. Yes, even in a pandemic, I was willing to take this on, even though superintendent colleagues of mine have told me there's 2 things you never do if you want to keep your job as a superintendent. That is to add taxes and change student assignment. And we're doing both in the middle of a pandemic. But I know we can't wait 2 more years to have to do this work. We can't do it. We must do it now. We must make the case to our community. And if we're not successful, we're not successful. But I'm not willing to leave this position where I say I didn't make an attempt to change outcomes for students, because money matters and funding matters. So all of those that are on this call, especially those for Jefferson County, I would ask that you be an active supporter as we go into the fall into referendum. It's what we need. It's what our kids need. It's what we must have, or we will have a crisis in this community in 6, 8, 10 years that we may not be able to recover from. I think we're going to be successful, and I look forward to making that case. Finally, I just wanted to address the elephant in the room, which is the return to school. And as you can imagine, it has weighed heavily on me for the better part of a month, where we have not had I've not had the opportunity to sleep a whole lot for many reasons, but clearly this is one of them. When we went to NTI in the spring, I was very pleased with how we responded, and our district's response, and our staff and students and families. At that time, we got about 3 or 4 weeks into it, and I was like everyone else. In the summer months, we'll have cases that'll go away. We'll be able to return to school. We'll be in school for 8, 10, 12 weeks, and then maybe in November or December, we'll get this so-called second wave that we heard about. So at the same time, we're preparing to return to school. We also said, let's prepare to be in NTI at some point in the year, and let's do that better. I've got a great team. One of the definite talents I have, if I have any talents, is to surround myself with great people, which I have done. And so, the team stepped up and we planned. We had no idea that when we got into late June that we were going to see cases grow in this community 50% every 2 weeks. And we still don't know so much about this virus. We know kids are getting it, but yes, they're not, we're not seeing the significant illness for children. But at the same time, we don't know the long-term consequences of that. Secondly, when we surveyed our staff, nearly 60% of our staff had some type of fear of returning back. That was either a pre-existing condition that they have or that someone they care for has. We also, as you all know, in your schools, we have thousands of kids who have pre-existing conditions. And so, you know, I really felt that we would go back to school and really try to implement, and you all know how challenging it was going to be to implement across this entire district the CDC guidelines, but we were going to do that. But as the data became clear that this was not going away, and I laid in bed and thought and huddled with my team that if we send 115,000 people back into school buildings, I don't think anyone would doubt there will be significant spread of the virus caused by 115,000 people going back into school buildings trying to implement guidelines. There is no doubt it would result in increase in a spread. And as a result, I believe there would definitely be significant illness and possibly death from staff and even students, but more likely staff. And I just had to look myself in the mirror and say, I am not willing, or what is that number of death that is okay for me to say, you're okay to go back into school. I have become very disappointed at the public narrative that are saying, and they're willing to say, teachers, bus drivers, nutrition workers, and security and staff are frontline workers. No one got in this profession to be a frontline worker. You got into this profession to care for kids and make a difference. And so it's just one more thing we're asking educators to do, which is to not only care for kids who are struggling more than they've ever struggled, have more trauma than they've ever had, but to also potentially risk you or your family's life by going to work. And I just had to say, I'm not willing to do that. And for me, one death would be too many. And I think there's many districts out there that may be able to do that in a much smaller setting. But when we were looking at the amount of interactions between staff and students and 115,000, I just felt like it was something that we had to make that decision, and our board was very clear on it. We want to be back in school sooner rather than later. But once again, I think this is a decision. I wish that we had more leadership from a federal level when it can, and I'm not trying to get political in any way because that is not my goal here. I do everything I can to stay out of politics, but I do wish that we had more of a national school-based return to school plan. We don't have that. So instead, we're going to make the best decision for our students and staff, and I'm willing to take the heat for that. So that's where we are. I hope we get back into school as soon as we possibly can, but I can't wait to do that in a healthy fashion. And I know our educators in JCPS are going to step up and provide the best absolute services we can in a virtual setting. So I want to thank you all for your time. I know I'm right up on my deadline. I always enjoy talking to educators. I don't get to do that nearly as much. I wish I was in a room with all of you and could judge reactions to things. But I'm so proud to be a part of a district who has state agency schools. I can't wait to get back into state agency schools and visit with kids. They're the reason I do this. So in whatever version that is that you are going to school, whether it's JCPS or another community, have a great year. Come with passion every single day, and remember to be like Dr. Kalpe. Love your job, be really, really good at it, and save a child's life every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pollio. We appreciate you being here. What wonderful words of advice and wisdom to share with all of our educators all across the Commonwealth. I think you can see in the chat function over there, people are really responding and appreciate your words of encouragement and support as we all make some very difficult, tough decisions about what school's going to look like moving forward. But all of us trying our best to do what is in the best interest of our students and our faculty and staff who go to work every day for our kids. So we appreciate all you've done, all of the tough decisions that you've had to do. It certainly sounds as though when you got into this, you got hit with everything you possibly could, one right after the other. So I appreciate you not giving up on that journey and not giving up on the students who are there and fighting your way through those tough decisions. We are all going to be better because of it. So thank you for for your leadership in JCPS and across the Commonwealth. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
As I said earlier, we had JCPS has some great folks. You guys are doing some great work up there. Heather Moss, who is on here, is the principal of those Jefferson County Public Schools, has done great work in leading those folks. Thank you, Heather, for that. And you saw also on there that Western Day Treatment received a lot of those recognitions. We also have Erica Brooks on here, another employee of Western Day Treatment, who's also a former Teacher of the Year. Thank you, Ms. Brooks, for being here as well. We're so excited about what we've been able to learn today and all that's been going on. And we're excited about tomorrow. So please join us back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be kicking off the day with Dr. Terry Scott, who's a leading researcher and expert on behavior management, classroom management. But he's not a boring researcher that you might think, oh, he's a researcher. No, he's really good. We're really excited to have him here with us tomorrow morning to kick things off. So I hope you appreciate everything that we've done today. We appreciate you. Thank you for attending, and we will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, right back here. Thank you all so much, and have a great day.